Well, like many of you out there, I'm on lockdown. I've run out of rooms in the house to clean, so what do? Car projects. One of the things I've been putting off for ages is this. That gasket there is leaking like hell, and as you can see, everything's covered in oil. I've got another gasket. I've sprayed an entire tin of gunk all over that, so I'm giving it sort of 15 minutes or so to eat into it, and then I shall give everything a bit of a clean once I've disconnected the electrics and covered anything that needs covering. But while I'm waiting for that, it occurred to me that last time, since this had been off road last, I hadn't cleaned it. And while I'm not fussed about it looking shiny, obviously well-known Land Rover rot spots do need looking after. There is the gasket in the sunlight. Here, for example, you can see where it's started to go, so that will need welding before the next MOT. And you can see in there where it's all muddy and whatever going underneath. So this is today's job. Clean the engine bay, clean the rest of the car, and replace that gasket. Tomorrow we move on to the Corvette, but for now, let's get on with this. So, while that dries and I replenish my fluids, yeah, we'll wait for that to dry, because that's drying, and yeah, I'm thirsty. I can't speak properly, but anyway, that will dry. I'll replace the gasket. I'll put it back together. I'll just then give the bonnet and the windscreen a wash, and that will probably be done for that. I might clean out the inside, we'll see. But I might also, while I've got the jet wash out, just bring the company car around and give that a quick once over. But yeah. Oh, I could probably clean my windows as well. But anyway, yes, right, moving on. I'll see you when it's dried and I'm doing other things. Yes. So here it is off, and you can immediately see where oil has been coming out. So I think this is being replaced just in time, really. So yeah, I'll give that a quick clean up and put a new gasket on. Right, I've just put a little bit of a gasket, black gasket seal, in a couple of places around here. Doesn't need it all round, as you might have noticed. I'm not sure if I show you. There's a ridge which sits down inside a groove there, so it's not going to slip as such, but just while I'm getting it on, obviously I don't want this falling off, so just in a few of the places that are going to be harder to get to, sort of around the injectors, and a couple of little blobs on this side, I'll just put some on just to hold the gasket in place while it's upside down and being put on there. So let's do that now. Right, moment of truth. I've given everything a clean now, hopefully you can still hear me, with the dulcet tones of a 200 TDI even. Don't know if that means anything. Looks like 10L54176A. May or may not mean anything. I've no idea if it's the original engine. Anyway, gasket's on. I've nipped it tightish, but not so tight as it buggers the gasket up. And just let it run now and see if I get any legs. Can't see any obvious leaks so far, but I may not be able to tell straight away. I may have to wait until it's driven for a few miles and see. So far so good. Right, go and put this away and go and get the company car. Well, I've just been on a little drive just round the block and along the bypass, so just get the engine up to temperature. And thus far, everything is still looking dry. One oil leak there, look at it. One oil leak sorted. Only 500 more to go. But it is a Land Rover. Right, let's shut this up and clean that. So, not strictly car related, or not car related at all actually, but with the Land Rover gasket done and the thing sort of cleaned, the company car has been washed. So if my boss happens to be watching this, please don't expect this all the time, but the car washing Lithuanian, Polish ant people are currently quarantined, so I've given it a quick wash myself. One off. But my niece has broke her phone again, so good old Uncle Tim is going to replace the screen. And while I do that, I'm also going to replace the little earpiece and the mute switch on my own phone, which obviously I won't be able to film because I'm filming it on my phone. And yeah, anyway, so let's get on with this one. So for those of you that have never done one of these, there are two little screws in the end there, which use a weird focus, a weird little sort of screwdrivery thing. I like to use one of these rubber mats because I've got little places to put the screws so they don't roll away, and I can put them in order. Normally you'd have to sort of prise this up at this end and then fold it up, but because this was so broken it didn't need that. So this folds up. I replaced the battery a while back. Oh, it's come unstuck. And I replaced these switches a while back at Christmas time, I think. But I do have to swap over the earpiece and camera and the button assembly from this old one onto the new one. But first of all, undo those, which allows me to unplug these ribbon cables. So with that off, and just as a point of reference, that screw on there is a long one, all the rest are short. I can unplug all those and remove this. Normally you'd have to use the hot air gun to heat a lot of these and for the prise the adhesive off, but I think because this was replaced not long ago, the adhesive will hopefully be weak enough where I won't need it, but I do have the hot air gun just in case. So there, with them all unplugged from there and all there, obviously remember how they go, but the way the length of the ribbon strips sort of determine where they go, but obviously try and remember. And we've separated that, so this part can now go over here, out of the way, onto this. Now, as you can see, we've got bits missing. So obviously the button needs to be swapped over. That's relatively straightforward. The earpiece needs to be swapped over, and the camera needs to be swapped over. I think that's about it, but we will figure it out as we go along. And obviously this metal backing plate needs to be swapped over. But I would love to film a bit more, but unfortunately I haven't got a stand, so I'll just film the bits as I go along. So there's that bit off. Comes off like that. Obviously one of those is there. You got 6 screws along the side, 2 at the back, although there is a third one because that covers over the top. And then just gently prise the button assembly off, like so. Again, a little bit of heat's needed just to remove the adhesive, or just to loosen up the adhesive, but not too bad. Put that to one side, and then you'll see we're getting there. So next step is the earpiece and the camera, which is up on this end. What we have got, if that will focus, just turn that off a sec, is that little bit there. Now that centres the camera over the hole. And obviously that needs to be transferred. That is glued in place, and whereas a lot of the cables and things just get a tiny little bit just so don't move around while you're trying to assemble it, that does actually have to be stuck in place. So I do need a bit of heat, try and loosen that up and gently pry it off. Also there's this little rubber bit here needs transferring, and these 2 little rubber bits there need transferring. So obviously, you know, give everything a good check to make sure nothing needs swapping over that you haven't done, but it should all be fairly self-explanatory. But right, bit of heat. Right, so that's all off. Move the little rubber bit over. And I find the best way with the glue side is put a bit of super glue on something, and then you can just touch that on rather than cover that, because it doesn't need a lot, just enough to hold it. So I probably should have some pliers, but I haven't got any handy. Just to pick that up, or little tweezers or something, and you can just dab it on the glue, put it there, just move it to the right position, then leave it to set. Right, I don't know if you can focus or not, but you should just be able to see it is shaped to go round that screw hole, so it can only fit one way, and then it's just a case of trying to centre it as best as you can. Unfortunately this one is ever so slightly warped, where it's now been heated up 2 or 3 times. So if I have to replace this again, I'll probably have to buy a replacement one of those, so don't break it again. Right, so that's on as suspected, and now if that will, you can really see. Yeah, if you can see, the camera doesn't quite fit in that thing properly, where it has just slightly warped a little bit too much. Hopefully that will be alright. If it isn't, obviously I'll have to buy a replacement one, but hopefully that will be okay. Trouble is, we won't know until it's back together. You do have to really pay attention to how everything goes together here, because the earpiece has one that fits on top of it, another that fits underneath it, and some that have to fit round it in a certain way, so you have to really pay attention to how it comes apart, unless you've done a few, to get it all back together in the right way, in the right order, and then clamp that down over the top. Down here I've moved the little rubber bungs, put the button in, just push that down into its little sticky up bits, little dowels, locating dowels, that's what I was looking for. There, So we can now start to get everything reassembled. Yay! So with that all together, our remaining screws, back plates on, buttons on, little rubber bungs are on, all they're on. So now, just need to reattach it. I'll just stick that battery back down. I don't like that moving. And we just clip everything back in, put the plate on, clip it back together, and hope it works. Right, with them all clipped in, it said you do it again, just have to pay attention to how they fit the wires stack so they all go in the right place. Clip them in, and we just need to put this plate on. Again, remembering the long screw goes in that one and the shorts in the others, and we can close it up to see if it works. So we're all back together apart from just these last two screws in there, just to make sure everything works, which it does. The camera, oh, that's upright. Haha, there we go, that one works. Let's twiddle it around. And that one all seems to work as well. Oh, it's just, yeah. Make sure the microphones and everything work, and we're good to go. So, with that back together, and all working fine and quank free, keep it like that please, niece. I have replaced the speaker in, or the earpiece speaker in this phone. I didn't bother replacing the mute switch in the end because the battery was replaced last year by Apple, and by Christ they've stuck it in well, and I don't want to bugger the battery up trying to get it out just to replace that. So I'll replace that if and when I ever replace the battery again, when it doesn't matter if I'm buggering it up because I've got another one to go in, if you see what I mean. So there we have it, a day in lockdown. I've sorted the Land Rover out. Well, some of the Land Rover bits. I've still got to do the steering box. Might do that next week, perhaps, we'll see. I've given the outside a clean, I've given the company car a clean, I've replaced the screen in my niece's phone, I've replaced the earpiece in my phone, and yeah. I'll just have a quick tidy up now, put all my tools away, and think of something to have to eat tonight, really, I suppose. Yeah. Probably order pizza. Don't know if I've got anything. Don't know, I'll have to have a look. Lockdown, don't you love it? But anyway, tomorrow, excitement. Yay, I'm in lockdown again. I shall make a start on the Corvette. Now, I don't know if any of you noticed, but what I was using to prop the phone up with was this swivel housing grease. So I've still got a few bits left to do on the Land Rover. Obviously replace the swivel housing grease. The front and rear diffs and transfer box and gearbox, I want to replace the oil in those. That might be something for next week. The problem I've got is where I did the engine oil swap, my oil catch can thing is full up, and the local tip is currently shut due to COVID-19 lockdowns, so I can't actually get rid of the old oil, and there's not enough room in there to do the rest of it. So I'm sort of not sure about that one yet. But what I have also got is this stuff, Gelinite Rust Converter, and several tins of this Hammerite underbody seal wax oily spray stuff. So what I want to do tomorrow is nip over to my garage. It's only a mile down the road. I'm sure I'll be allowed to do that. If not, hopefully I won't get stopped. But anyway, I've got me little face mask there, so I don't get all the crap in me eyes. And I'll get under with a wire brush, brush it all down, soak it in that rust treatment stuff. It's not actually rusty as such, obviously the surface rust in places, but some of the main areas that you can't, that tend to rust out on Corvette chassis, sort of in the rear gusset areas and the corners and stuff, it's difficult to get to. So my theory is, rather than using the brushable stuff, which I have got some in the Land Rover, but if I saturate those areas with the spray one, hopefully it should soak through any crap or whatever there and get to those areas, and hopefully, in theory, sort out anything I can't get to. Plus I can just spray that perhaps in some of the other areas better than I'd be able to brush it. Once that's dried, then I'll just cover the chassis in that Hammerite underbody stuff, and that way hopefully I'll keep a chassis that is in good condition. I'll keep it in good condition. The longer I can stove off any chassis work, the better. So, since I can't drive the car, might as well do things like that. And I've also got the valve covers to put back on there. Been nicely polished up. Again, the gaskets are stuck to the bottom of those, so they just need putting back on. And once I have put those on, once I've finished doing the chassis, I can then put the sill covers back on either side, and the Corvette will be ready to go. It's not currently taxed, it's still currently on sawn. Again, why tax if I can't really drive it? I'll probably tax it next month just so I can bring it home, give it a good clean polish, just go over the whole thing, T-cut the whole car, polish the whole car, wax the whole car, do all inside, clean all that up, just detail the engine bay a little bit. Now I've got shiny bits in it. But also, while petrol is as cheap as it is, it would be churlish not to go and fill the car up. Petrol hasn't been this cheap for a very, very long while. So yeah, go and fill the car up while it's basically £1 a litre. So yeah, I think I'll end this here and go and find something to eat. It is, what are we now, 7 o'clock now? Oh, blimey. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this insight into the joys of my lockdown. I'll see you tomorrow when I'm doing a Corvette. Ta-da!